Good evening, Iowa City. I am Iowa City Mayor Bruce Teague, and I wanted to take some time to reach out through Facebook Live and through other media outlets to just let you know that our community is in a time of great turmoil. We know that George Floyd murder happened on Monday, May 25th, at the hand of a Minneapolis police officer. And so I wanted to just address this topic and to share the feelings about our community on such an act. We know that the officer knelt down and took George Floyd's life unjustly, killed him. And it wasn't until yesterday that it changed from a third degree to a second degree murder. The other officers that were around witnessing at the scene was also arrested yesterday, June 3rd, and charged with aiding and abetting second degree murder. Today was George Floyd's funeral. And I don't know about you, but this situation has caused me to pause and to look at what really is happening throughout our nation when it comes to police brutality and the outright racist act that could take place by someone in a blue uniform. This has also caused me to wonder about other things within our nation. When it comes down to race and policies and procedures, and I think what we're seeing from the protesters throughout the nation is they are wanting us to know loud and clear that enough is enough. I am a part of the Black community, and I can tell you firsthand that I am grieving. I am hurt. And I want change. And I want it now. When we look at our own community, we must pause and wonder about our own police department and the policies that we have. We want to make sure that our police are top-notch when it comes down to social justice for all. We want to equip them with information and education. We want to hold them accountable. And we will do a review of our own police policies, which our council has requested, and we're going to create some ways to get public involvement in this review process, because I believe that that is also important. When we think about George Floyd and what has happened and how his death has caused a great outpouring within the Black community, and with all communities within our nation, I have to tell you that I'm actually pretty proud to see those that are going out and making their voices heard. Protesting is a right that I certainly don't want to diminish the effects that protesting has. And I don't want to hinder how protesters have the right to get out and make sure that their voices are heard. I am concerned about safety. I am concerned that within our community, we need to realize that people are so hurt. They are relentless in ensuring that their message is heard. We're concerned about the safety. And for that, I ask that protesters protest It's your right. Let's do it in a peaceful manner. Peaceful manner does not include making your voices loud and clear. But peaceful manner does include no destruction within our city. I kindly implore you to respect and not cause harm on property and destruction within our city. Our city council is dedicated to listening to protesters, and as an act of honoring and listening to the protesters tonight, we are planning to join the protest that has happened downtown on the Pentecrest. Our city councilors have been invited. I personally will be attending, along with our Mayor Pro Tem, Mazahir Salih. I understand that we have other councilors that have committed. And tonight we are going to listen. We want to hear you. We really want to hear you. We had minimal police engaged over the past few days. While I'm sure you've heard of the some of the spray painting that has happened downtown in Iowa City and in some areas, and some of the buildings, windows being broken out, including at the City Hall. We understand that people are mad. The protesters that I've talked to, they really are not wanting the physical destruction. And those that are really wanting change and want to actually have change happen through policy, they're not wanting the destruction. So those that are attending the protest, please keep that in mind. We will listen to you. We are concerned about your safety. Last night, I also want to talk about what happened when the protesters were heading towards Interstate 80 on Dubuque Street. Prior to the protest, the Iowa State Patrol made the determination that it was a public safety interest to keep the protesters off the interstate. Because of the risk of fatality, it was high. In order to avoid hand-to-hand use of force and keep people off the interstate, the use of chemical deterrents were deployed. This included efforts from several law enforcement agencies, including our own Iowa City Police Department. And we were acting under the direction of the Iowa State Patrol. Now, I would love to tell you that that wasn't the case last night, but it was. Law enforcement felt they had to preserve the risk of any type of fatality by doing this measure. We understand that now there are people throughout the community that are really upset with the protesting that happened last night and have some efforts of their own. I have to let people know within our community that the protesters, if you're looking at the acts that they're doing and you leave it at that, you are missing the message. The message that they're sending needs to be clear to our community. It is very clear to me. It is very clear to our council. And that is, we are tired of being left out and at the table and policies and procedures that does not work in our best interests. We want to make sure not only are police policies equitable, but we want to make sure that all the policies within our community and opportunities within our community have consideration for people of color and minorities. We are so heartbroken by the act that happened last night. We're heartbroken. To be on national news over this following George Floyd is heartbreaking. It's not what we want. It's not what we need. We're hurting right now, and we need to find ways to express our hurt and our frustrations. One of the things that I've been doing along with Mayor Pro Tem Mazahir Salih, Supervisor Roy Sam Porter of Johnson County, and with Counselor Rakesha Harrington of North Liberty, along with Pastor Smith from New Creations Church, is we have organized an opportunity for our community to come out and express your frustration and your hurt, and to get this off your chest in a public fashion. Our first one was last night, and we have another one on Friday night at 6 p.m. at Pheasant Ridge at the neighborhood center there. We have one on Saturday at 2 p.m. at Mercer Park. What I found to happen last night was an opportunity for people to come as a group and grieve together, to say we must change how we're living in our society and be committed to that change, because what the worst thing that we can do is, once this kind of dies down and it settles, is forget about this time and this commitment that we've made. That's the worst thing that we can do. Iowa City, you know I love you. You know that this city has been relentless when it actually comes down to social justice and creating change. If we can go and create change about some of the things that we want in our community when it comes down to animals and parks, when we start to talk about human life, we need to make sure that the change that we want to see is in policy, and not only in policy, but through action. Black Lives Matter. Sometimes people cringe at hearing that terminology. Last night, someone made an analogy, and I want to just talk about this for a minute. I believe in one human race. Because of Adam and Eve, I'm a Christian. But outside of that, we know that there's different races that have evolved throughout our community and our world. And when you think about Black Lives Matter, and you hear someone else say, well, don't all lives matter? Absolutely, all lives do matter. And because someone says Black Lives Matter doesn't discount, all right, I am so sorry that the system froze and we had to restart Facebook. But I wanted to talk about Black Lives Matter, continue with that conversation. And there was an analogy that was made by someone yesterday that said, when someone else said all lives matter, took a moment to talk about, if Bob's house is on fire and Bob is watching his house and you're there watching Bob's house, would you say all houses matter? When Bob's house is on fire, you go and you assist Bob's house. Right now, Black lives, they're on fire. And we need everyone to focus in a little bit more attention on the Black lives over here. So I think that people, when they hear Black Lives Matter, you need to know right now that Black lives do matter, and we're hurting. And the acts that people see throughout our nation, the looting and the writing of spray paint, you can focus all day in on those acts, but again, you must leave with the message that Black lives are on fire, and we need the help of the community to take it out. Iowa City Police Department, we are not okay with the use of agents. But what we do know is that when there is public concern, or if tonight, we don't know what to expect. If there's two opposing protesters, we have to ensure safety. And we can talk about what that means. How do you do that safely or safer? Hands-on is not an option. We have been in conversation with the organizers and hope to navigate a safe protest tonight. And we're going to do everything possible to maintain that. I am very appreciative for the efforts of the protesters. They have a right to be out there, and they have a right to speak their voice. And we as a community, we really need to hear their message. In closing, I just want to say that George Floyd's death, I honestly believe, is the catalyst that will start change systemically throughout our community. We have change that needs to happen at City Hall. We have change that needs to happen through the housing department. We have change that needs to happen on the state level, change in the school system, changes within employers. There's a lot of work to be done. How do we get there? Because we can talk about change all day. We get there by several ways. Join a board or a commission, attend meetings, and ensure that at the top and the center of the conversation, we talk about equity, not equality solely, equity. There is a difference. We ensure that people that we're talking about, minorities or Blacks, we ensure they have a space at the table so that they can represent themselves and share firsthand what they need as a community. Our society for too long has not fully understood the challenges Blacks in our community and in our nation face. But I believe it is very clear. It is very clear. Iowa City, Black lives are on fire right now. You all know I love all of you. I honestly believe that the human race is the only race. But right now, Black lives are on fire, and we need you to come and assist to get this fire out. Thank you, Iowa City, for all that you do and all you will continue to do in these efforts. And know that I, as the mayor of Iowa City, will continue to do what I can to ensure the safety of those that are protesting, as well as to ensure that we move in actionable ways towards change. Thank you, and have a good night.